Welcome to Heidi Relationships. Today, we'll read some more stories from Reddit. But before we start, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and maybe leave a comment down below. That would help the channel a lot. Thank you very much in advance. The first one is titled, "My girlfriend put her name on my property. I took her to court." Hey everyone. I need to share this wild experience that completely changed how I view relationships and trust. Fair warning, this is a long one, but I think the details matter for understanding just how crazy this situation got. First, let me give you some background. I'm Ryan, 34M, and I grew up watching my single mom struggle to make rent every month. We moved around a lot, 12 different apartments by the time I finished high school. Every time we'd start feeling settled somewhere, the rent would go up or the building would get sold, and we'd have to move again. I promised myself that when I grew up, I'd own my own home. No more landlords, no more sudden moves, no more uncertainty. After high school, I worked construction while taking night classes at community college. It wasn't easy, but I gradually worked my way up from laborer to supervisor to project manager. Every extra dollar went into my savings account. While my friends were buying new cars and taking fancy vacations, I drove a beat-up Toyota and lived in a tiny studio apartment. 10 years of sacrifice paid off 2 years ago when I finally had enough saved for a down payment. Finding the right house was another challenge. I spent 6 months looking at properties, learning about neighborhoods, and researching market values. Finally, I found it. A modest but solid 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood about an hour outside of Seattle. The previous owners were an elderly couple downsizing to a condo, and they'd maintained everything meticulously. The day I got the keys, I actually cried a little. Embarrassing maybe, but this house represented everything I'd worked for. My mom cried too when she saw it. "Your dad would be so proud," she told me. "He passed away when I was 5, but I like to think she's right." I spent the first year slowly making improvements, updating the kitchen, refinishing the hardwood floors, building a deck in the backyard. Every project made it feel more like home. My mom joked that I was nesting like a bird, but she wasn't wrong. After a lifetime of temporary spaces, I finally had somewhere permanent. Then I met Jessica at a friend's BBQ last summer and everything changed. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared interest in home renovation shows and hiking. Within a few months of dating, things got serious pretty quickly. Looking back, there were some red flags I chose to ignore. Jessica would make comments about how she was tired of paying rent and how it would be so much smarter financially for us to live together. She'd constantly point out improvements we could make to my house, sending me Pinterest boards and renovation ideas, always talking about our future home, even though we'd only been dating for a few months. But I was caught up in the excitement of a new relationship, and honestly, I liked her enthusiasm. When she suggested moving in together after 6 months of dating, I agreed. Yeah, I know, crazy fast. But she made compelling arguments about saving money and taking our relationship to the next level. The first couple of months of living together were great. Jessica was an excellent cook. We had fun working on small home improvement projects together, and it felt nice having someone to come home to. She paid her share of the utilities and groceries, though I didn't ask her for rent since I was comfortable covering the mortgage myself. Then, things started getting weird. One day, I came home from work to find Jessica in an unusually good mood. "Baby, I have a surprise for you," she announced as soon as I walked in the door. "Oh yeah? What's that?" I asked, dropping my keys in the bowl by the door. She practically bounced over to me. "I took care of updating all the paperwork for the house. Now everything's properly organized and filed." I felt a weird twinge in my stomach. "What paperwork?" "You know, adding me to the property documents since I live here now. I handled everything through my connections at the title company. No need to thank me." She beamed like she'd just announced she'd won the lottery. I stood there frozen, trying to process what she'd just said. "You did what?" "Added my name to the house title. It just makes sense, right? I mean, we're building a life together, and this way everything's official." "Jessica, that's not... You can't just add yourself to someone else's property title without their permission. That's not legal." Her smile faltered slightly. "Don't be silly. Of course it's legal. I'm a real estate agent, remember? I know what I'm doing. Besides, we're practically married anyway." "We've been dating for 8 months," I said slowly, feeling like I was in some kind of bizarre dream. "And you never discussed this with me." "I didn't think I needed to. I was just being practical. Why are you getting so upset about this?" I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Because this is my house, Jessica. I paid for it. I have the mortgage. You can't just add yourself to the title without my consent." Well, technically, I already did, she said with a little laugh that made my blood run cold. And since we're going to get married eventually anyway, what's the big deal? That's when I realized I was dealing with something way more serious than I had initially thought. I need to see these documents, I said firmly. They're in my work bag. But honestly, Ryan, you're overreacting. This is just a practical step for our future. I insisted on seeing the paperwork immediately. When she finally showed me, my worst fears were confirmed. She had somehow managed to add herself as a co-owner of my property, using her real estate connections to push through documentation that I supposedly had signed, except I hadn't signed anything. Jessica, this is my signature, but I never signed these papers. How did this happen? She wouldn't meet my eyes. I might have copied it from some other documents, but it's fine. It's just a formality. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. You forged my signature? Don't say it like that. I was just trying to help organize our future. You're making this into something ugly when it doesn't need to be. I pulled out my phone and started Googling real estate lawyers while she talked. This was way beyond a relationship issue. This was fraud. What are you doing? She demanded. Finding a lawyer. What you did is illegal, Jessica. You committed fraud. Her entire demeanor changed in an instant. The sweet, reasonable girlfriend disappeared, replaced by someone I barely recognized. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. I live here now. This is my home too. If you try to fight this, I'll make your life hell. You need to pack your things and leave, now. I'm not going anywhere. I'm on the title now. You can't kick me out. I called my best friend Craig and asked him to come over immediately. I didn't feel safe being alone with Jessica given how she was acting. While waiting for him to arrive, I started documenting everything, taking photos of the forged documents with my phone and recording Jessica as she alternated between threatening me and trying to convince me she'd done nothing wrong. Baby, please, she pleaded. I only did this because I love you so much. Don't you see? We're meant to be together. What you did is criminal, Jessica. This isn't love, it's fraud and manipulation. Craig arrived within 20 minutes, and thank God he did, because Jessica was becoming increasingly erratic. You're ruining everything, she screamed when I told her again she needed to leave. I did this for us. Why can't you understand that? Craig, bless him, had the presence of mind to start recording on his phone too. Jess, you need to calm down and pack your stuff. This isn't going to end well if you keep this up. She turned on him. This is none of your business. This is between me and my boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend, I corrected her. We're done. And this stopped being just between us when you committed fraud. The next few hours were chaos. Jessica refused to leave, claiming she had tenant rights. She was technically correct about that part. I couldn't legally force her out immediately. But I made it clear she needed to find somewhere else to live as soon as possible. That night, I slept in the guest room with the door locked while Jessica alternated between crying loudly in our former bedroom and sending me manipulative texts. I can't believe you're doing this to us. I only did it because I love you so much. You're throwing away our future. You'll regret this. The next morning, I called in sick to work and met with a real estate lawyer. Said lawyer came highly recommended for handling property disputes, and she didn't sugarcoat things. This is serious, she said after reviewing the documents. Your girlfriend committed several crimes here. Fraud, forgery, and possibly identity theft, depending on what other documents she may have manipulated. The good news is, it should be relatively straightforward to prove the fraud and get the title corrected. The bad news is, it's going to take some time and money. I don't care what it costs, I told her. I need to fix this. She nodded approvingly. Smart man. Too many people try to handle these situations privately and end up making things worse. We'll need to file an emergency petition to correct the property title, and I strongly recommend pressing criminal charges as well. Criminal charges? Isn't that extreme? Sir, what she did wasn't just morally wrong, it was criminal fraud. If we don't create an official record of this, nothing stops her from trying something similar with someone else in the future. Plus, having a criminal complaint on file will help if she tries to fight the title correction. I left her office with a game plan and a sick feeling in my stomach. I'd trusted Jessica, let her into my home and my life, and she'd betrayed that trust in one of the worst ways possible. When I got home, Jessica was waiting with a complete change in tactics. Ryan, baby, I'm so sorry, she said, eyes welling up with tears. I know what I did was wrong. I was just scared of losing you, of not having security in our relationship. Please, can we talk about this? We can get the title changed back and I'll make it up to you, I promise. A week ago, I might have fallen for it, but now I could see the manipulation for what it was. There's nothing to talk about, I said firmly. My lawyer will be contacting you. I suggest you get your own representation. Her face hardened. A lawyer? Really? After everything we've been through, you're going to sue me? You committed fraud, Jessica. What did you think was going to happen? I thought you loved me. I thought we were building a future together. Love doesn't involve forging documents and stealing property. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. I changed the locks that afternoon, which led to another screaming match when she came back and couldn't get in. This is illegal, she shrieked through the door. I live here. My lawyer says otherwise, I called back. You can coordinate with her to get your belongings. The next few weeks were a nightmare of legal proceedings and drama. Jessica hired her own lawyer and tried to fight the title correction, claiming we had a verbal agreement about shared ownership. She also filed a complaint with the police claiming I had illegally evicted her and stolen some of her possessions. I hadn't. Everything was documented and photographed. The turning point came when Laura subpoenaed records from the title company. Turned out Jessica had used her real estate credentials to access their system improperly, and she'd submitted multiple documents with forged signatures. The title company was horrified when they discovered what had happened and immediately initiated their own investigation. The evidence was overwhelming. Not only had Jessica forged my signature on the title documents, but she'd also created fake supporting documentation and used her professional access to push everything through without proper verification. The title company's investigation revealed she'd done similar things before with rental applications, though never anything as serious as property theft. Jessica's lawyer quickly changed tactics from fighting the charges to damage control. They offered to voluntarily correct the title and cover all my legal fees if I agreed not to press criminal charges. My lawyer advised against accepting. This isn't just about you anymore, she explained. She used her professional credentials to commit fraud. If we don't report it, she could do this to someone else. She was right. I authorized her to reject the offer and proceed with both the civil case to correct the title and criminal charges for fraud and forgery. The legal proceedings dragged on for months. Jessica was fired from her real estate job when the fraud came to light. She lost her license too. She tried to paint herself as the victim, claiming she'd only done it because she was desperate for security in our relationship. Her lawyer attempted to argue that since she'd been contributing to household expenses, she had some claim to the property. The judge wasn't buying any of it. I'm sorry to say, he said during one hearing, but contributing to household expenses as a romantic partner does not entitle you to fraudulently add yourself to a property title. Your actions show a disturbing pattern of deliberate deception and abuse of professional credentials. In the end, the court ordered the title restored to my sole ownership. Jessica was charged with multiple counts of fraud and forgery. She eventually accepted a plea deal that included probation, mandatory counseling, and restitution for all my legal expenses. The real estate company she worked for also sued her separately for misuse of their systems and damage to their reputation. Last I heard, she had to move back in with her parents in Oregon. It's been 6 months since this all started. The house is back in my name only, Jessica is out of my life, and I've installed a security system that would make Fort Knox jealous. The whole experience cost me about $15,000 in legal fees, which Jessica is supposed to repay but probably never will, countless sleepless nights, and my ability to trust easily in relationships. But you know what? It was worth it. I learned some valuable lessons, some of which I hope you guys will keep in mind too. 1. Trust your gut when you see red flags too. Don't rush into living together no matter how right it feels. 3. Keep important documents secure and monitor your property records. 4. Get everything in writing, even, especially, with romantic partners. 5. Don't hesitate to get legal help when someone violates your rights. Last night, I had some friends over for dinner, something that took me months to feel comfortable doing again after everything that happened. We were sitting on my newly finished deck, enjoying a few beers, when Craig, the same friend who helped me that crazy night, brought up the Jessica situation. Hey, you should tell them the property title story, he urged, grinning. They won't believe it. I hesitated at first. It's still not my favorite topic, but found myself sharing the whole wild tale. Somehow, with 6 months of distance and good friends around me, I could finally see the absurd humor in parts of it. Wait, someone interrupted, nearly choking on his beer. She actually said, "Don't worry, I handled all the paperwork, like she'd done you a favor." "Oh yeah," I laughed, like she'd picked up dry cleaning or something. The look on her face when I didn't fall to my knees in gratitude, priceless. Another friend shook her head in disbelief. I can't believe she thought that would work. Like, what was step 2 of her master plan? According to the text she sent during the legal proceedings, she figured once her name was on the title, I'd realize how committed she was and propose. I rolled my eyes, because nothing says true love like property fraud. The best part, Craig added, smiling so wide I was sure his cheeks hurt, was when she tried to argue in court that her Pinterest boards of house renovations proved she had a legitimate claim to the property. The judge's face was incredible. "No way," our friend said. "Please tell me you're joking." Her lawyer actually tried to enter them as evidence, called them documentation of joint property planning or something equally ridiculous. We all lost it at that point. Even I had to admit, looking back, some parts were almost comically absurd. "You know what's funny?" I said, once we'd caught our breath. "This house means even more to me now, not just because of what it cost me to earn it, but because of what it costs to protect it. Every time I walk through that door, I remember that I was strong enough to stand up for myself when it mattered." My new girlfriend reached over and squeezed my hand. Unlike Jessica, she understands boundaries and respect. We've been dating for 4 months now, and she's never once sent me a Pinterest board or suggested updating any paperwork. "For the record," she said with a smirk, "when we eventually move in together, years from now, I promise to only commit legal acts of cohabitation." "Appreciated," I laughed, "though I might still need that notarized statement in triplicate." The house is looking better than ever. I've finished several of the renovation projects Jessica and I had planned, but now they're exactly how I want them. The only Pinterest boards I follow are my own, and the only name on my property title is mine. Sometimes the most expensive lessons are the most valuable. I lost money, time, and a relationship, but I gained something more important: the knowledge that I'm strong enough to stand up for myself and my boundaries, no matter how uncomfortable it gets. Looking around at my friends laughing on my deck, at the home I fought to protect, I realized something. This whole crazy experience didn't break me. If anything, it made me stronger. It taught me what I'm capable of when pushed to my limits, and hey, at least it makes for one hell of a story at parties. Here are my thoughts about the story. You know what really got me? The part about Ryan crying when he got his keys? Man, people who've never had housing instability just don't get it. That feeling of finally having something permanent, something that's truly yours. It's not just about the house itself. It's about never having to apologize to your kid for changing schools again, or not having to calculate if you can afford both rent and Christmas presents this year. That part of the story wasn't even about Jessica, but it's what made everything that followed hit so much harder. And speaking of Jessica, holy hell, what a piece of work. The audacity of some people just blows my mind. Like, imagine thinking you can just casually commit property fraud and play it off as some romantic gesture. The Pinterest boards as evidence in court absolutely sent me. I had to reread that part 3 times because I couldn't believe it was real. Though I gotta say, as someone who's seen their fair share of crazy relationship stories on this channel, the Pinterest defense is definitely a new one. But here's what really stands out to me about this story. It's not actually about Jessica at all. It's about Ryan and his relationship with that house. The way he describes working his way up from construction labor, saving every penny, driving that beat-up Toyota while his friends were living it up. That's the kind of determination that comes from growing up with nothing. When you've watched your mom struggle to keep a roof over your head, you don't take homeownership lightly. He gets it, I get it, you guys get it, and Jessica clearly did not get it. That's on her, in the end. The ending really brought it home for me, though. Pun intended, sorry, not sorry. You know how some people who go through trauma just kind of marinate in it forever? But Ryan, the way he can sit there with his friends and actually laugh about it now, that's growth, man. That's healing. And the fact that he's dating someone new who respects his boundaries and can even joke about the situation, chef's kiss. Amazing. Beautiful. And listen, I've narrated stories about cheating, gaslighting, manipulation, you name it. But there's something especially messed up about trying to steal someone's dream right out from under them. The fact that Jessica saw this house that meant everything to Ryan and thought, yeah, I'm going to try to snag half of that, it shows a level of entitlement that's honestly breathtaking. The part that stuck with me most was when Ryan said, "Every time I walk through that door, I remember that I was strong enough to stand up for myself when it mattered." That's not just about keeping his house, that's about keeping his self respect. Sometimes the hardest part of standing up for yourself isn't facing the other person, it's facing that voice in your head that says, maybe I'm overreacting, or maybe I should just keep the peace. When it comes to something that literally puts your home at risk, don't do it. Don't keep that damn peace because you already know that's going to go horribly wrong eventually. But anyways, guys, with this, we've reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and like the video/comment if you enjoyed it. I'll see you again tomorrow.